In 1998, a truck loaded with explosives pulled up outside the US Embassy in the heart of Nairobi, driven by a suicide bomber. Now on BBC World News, Peter Taylor investigates the way these bombs ushered in a new chapter of the Age of Terror. Disturbing images from the outset in the last in the series.
Friday, August the 7th, 1998. Two men in a delivery truck set off from a suburb of the Kenyan capital, Nairobi. In the back, 1,600 pounds of explosives. "45 minutes later, the truck pulls up at the rear entrance of the United States Embassy. The symbol of American power in Africa is no more. Over 200 people were killed, thousands more injured. 3 years before 9/11, this was Osama bin Laden's first major strike in his jihad, his holy war against America.
It was a whack upside the head, a message that we chose not to listen to because we were tone deaf to terrorism at the time.
The attack took America by surprise, yet bin Laden had warned the world.
He said, "I'm going to take an incremental jump in violence every time we attack you until we get your attention."
This is going to continue. He was very clear about this. We're not just bombing you today. This is never going to end.
This is a story of unheeded warnings, missed opportunities, the slaughter of innocents. Osama bin Laden's war on the West is the latest bloody chapter in the Age of Terror. May 1998, 10 weeks before the attack on the American embassy. American journalist John Miller was heading for a dangerous rendezvous on the Pakistan-Afghan border. His assignment was an interview with Osama bin Laden, who just issued a fatwa, a holy edict, declaring war on America and its allies. Miller's mission was shrouded in secrecy. To ensure maximum security, he'd agreed to put himself in Al-Qaeda's hands.
They had purchased plane tickets in advance for cash. They had flown us from place to place, but we never knew where we were going till we literally were getting off the plane there. And we crossed the border in the darkness, and when we got to the other side, there was the truck waiting for us, and we got on and we were off again.
Eventually, Miller and his team reached an Al-Qaeda camp buried deep in the mountains.
Bin Laden arrives in a cavalcade, a motorcade of 3 SUVs. He gets out surrounded by bodyguards. When he gets out, everybody points their guns in the air, and they have tracer rounds, so you can see them being fired through the night. And they launch fireworks and rockets and gunfire. And bin Laden is moving in this kind of caterpillar of arms and legs and bodyguards from the cars towards this little hut where we're going to do the interview.
Bin Laden had demanded a list of Miller's questions in advance. Just before filming, his number 2, Ayman Zawahiri, approached Miller.
He said, I have very good news for you. Mr. bin Laden has agreed to answer each one of your questions. And I said, excellent. He said, there is one thing. I said, what's that? He said, we will not be able to translate his answers to you. And I was very disappointed. I said, well, that's going to make it very difficult. How am I going to ask the follow-up questions? He said, this will not be a problem. There will be no follow-up questions.
Standing by.
Standing by.
Anytime.
Mr. bin Laden, you've issued a fatwa calling on Muslims to kill Americans where they can, when they can. Is that directed at all Americans?
فنحن نعتقد أن أكبر لصوص العالم اليوم هم أمريكا وأكبر إرهابي اليوم في الأرض هم أمريكا فلا تمييز بيننا بين الرجل لابس عسكري أو مدني بل هم جميعا نعتبرهم أهداف.
The interview over, Miller turned to Zawahiri and asked him when America might expect bin Laden's war to begin.
And he said, oh, you will see the results of this fatwa in the next several weeks. I remember walking away from that saying, that's a little unusual. Usually they make a threat from a terrorist group. They don't put a time limit on it. They don't foreshadow that much. And here they're trying to tell us something's about to happen.
Nairobi, Kenya. Population 2 million. Targeted by bin Laden as the stage on which to launch his war on America. The US Embassy was located in the city center at a busy junction. Lee Reed was a senior security officer at the embassy where he'd been posted with his wife. 8 months before the bombing, he sent his bosses a formal report warning that the embassy was at risk.
We had conducted a security survey in January and February of 1998 where we had examined the inside and the outside of the embassy and studied it and realized that the embassy was very vulnerable to truck and car bomb attack. In fact, I took a photograph of the exact location the bomb eventually went off at and placed it in a report.
You put this in a report?
Yes, and sent it off to Washington.
Around the same time, a man walked in off the street to warn the embassy about a bomb plot.
The walk-in advised us that we were under threat of a truck bomb.
A truck bomb?
A truck bomb. Mm-hmm. The information was taken, sent back to CIA, and I was told that the man was a fabricator, and therefore we did not need to take heed of what he had said.
In the months leading up to the bombing, Ambassador Prudence Bushnell repeatedly contacted Washington, warning of her growing concern about security. Eventually, she went to the very top, to Secretary of State Madeleine Albright.
I wrote to Secretary Albright after I had been told by people at mid-levels to knock it off, because I knew I was accountable for my community's security. What I wrote to her was about the fact that the embassy was vulnerable.
And what did Secretary Albright say in reply to you?
I never got a reply.
No reply?
No. No.
The steady stream of warnings did register, but the response was not enough. Bin Laden had already identified the embassy's Achilles heel long ago. Back in 1994, he'd scrutinized photographs of the building and personally identified the optimum place to plant a bomb. When it comes to planning, Al-Qaeda is in a league of its own. Mombasa, on the east coast of Kenya, where radical Islam had taken root, an Al-Qaeda sleeper cell had been operating here undetected since 1994. Shortly after bin Laden pinpointed the embassy, cell members moved in, set up a fishing business, married local women, and even started families. The cell would lie low for 4 years.
The cell operating in Mombasa had significant cover. There was a lot of support in the area for radical fundamentalists, and there were individuals involved in shipping and transporting weapons. In fact, we actually believe that some of the explosive material was brought into East Africa through a boat, and they were allowed to operate freely in the Mombasa area.
The CIA and FBI were aware of the growing threat from bin Laden and were monitoring his activities through a secret unit known as Alex Station.